I just couldn't help myself. And today I want to talk about perhaps my favorite video game series some more. When I thought about it, I realized that one of the most important aspects of these games are the locations, the areas you journey through, and how they affect the player, both through awe but also frustration. Some are memorable and some you just can't forget. So let me tell you about the best and worst area from every Souls game, including Elden Ring. Let's jump into it. The more I play these games, the more I'm drawn to Demon Souls. And steadily but surely it's climbed my inner leaderboard of best Souls games to become one of my top 3 favorites. Since both the original 08 version and the remake is extremely similar, I will consider them to be the same and they will fall under a common ranking. So let's start out at the bottom, quite literally. The locations in Demon Souls flow into one another, and depending on how you choose to view things, areas can either be an entire Archstone or simply a section within the Archstone, which is how I chose to view it. Nonetheless, this unfortunate award must go to the Swamp of Sorrow in the Valley of Defilement. Not only is this the progenitor of Hidetaka's fetishism with swamps for some reason, but it's also one of the worst offenders. You could even make a case for the Depraved Chasm being a good area. Hell, I kinda liked it. But not so for the swamp itself. It takes forever to slog through the swamp parts. And jellyfish-like enemies are there to make your life even harder. If you take the main path where you can actually move, chances are you'll get clubbed to death. And despite Selen and the large Sword of Moonlight making an appearance, it doesn't save the area from being the worst in Demon Souls. The best area will be according to taste. Like the King's Tower, Island's Edge or Prison of Hope, each having their own strengths, and can be considered great areas. No one really ups the ante like Upper Latria does. After a valiant victory over the false idol, who is a cool boss, you are transported to the upper echelons of Latria, literally. The atmosphere in this place is unmatched. Thundering skies, roaring flames, and impossible architecture. And as you continue to explore the upper levels, you also find out rather quickly that you can go down to the lowest part of Latria as well. You come back up, and after ascending a massive tower, this area is capped out with a fight against one of the hardest, best bosses in Demon Souls, the Man-Eaters. Fantastic area through and through. Dark Souls is always fun to return to, and you sometimes get to re-experience certain areas and why you dread them so. Overall, it's a very uneven game, and I'm going to be honest, I despise some sections so much. When the Dark Souls quote-unquote remaster dropped, and I noticed that they had made no changes to the absolute depravity that is Lost Izalith, I wanted to cry. A big empty lava field of nothing noteworthy, and huge, amazing looking structures, which you can't explore. No hidden illusory wall or special items tied to lore, Fire Whip doesn't count. Almost endless runs to even reach the disaster that is Bed of Chaos makes this even worse. And you having to do it every time you fail is just salt in the wounds at this point. Although I dislike Crystal Cave and Demon Ruins, Lost Izalith can go and suck it. And before I say my best, I have to quickly mention how much I love Blighttown, despite some shoddy platforming. It's depressing, oppressive, claustrophobic and stressful, and pair that with no fast travel? Fantastic area, no cap. But the absolute best area in the game, for me, is actually a shocker. It's Sen's Fortress. Sen's feels like an oppressive dungeon crawling dream when you first venture through the area. A multitude of traps and dangerous falls, and throw in some well-hidden collectibles and we really have something special. Add on to that only one bonfire that is also hidden, and we have something great. The Iron Golem may be slightly lackluster, but the legend of Iron Tarkus and the location the fight takes place in ups it a notch. Close second and third would be Painted World of Ariamis followed by Honor Londo. The game in the series with arguably the most bad areas, but it's still home to some of my favorites. What makes most areas feel bad is the idea behind them, where most areas suffer from enemy clusters and gangbangs, but areas can also be beautiful, filled to the brim with atmosphere and a joy to play through. High highs and low lows, I guess. We're just going to skim over a certain frozen wasteland because let's be real, it doesn't exist. Never existed to begin with, right? Nice. Good we're on the same page.
It's beautiful here, it's coming down. I'm an untrained meteorologist reporting on the snow. I mean, it's in the streets. God damn!
Overall, the worst area in the game is without a doubt Shrine of Amana. On the base version of the game on the PS3, this was a travesty in game design. Enemies locked on from half the length of the area, and worse, they fired homing soul arrows that even sometimes curved around corners or through walls and did huge amounts of damage. Paired with the hard to navigate terrain, a great number of enemies and no bonfires, this is just depressing. With the Scholar Edition they tuned the area, but it's still a nightmare, and if I could I would honestly just skip the entire thing. Close second is Shaded Woods, if you want to know. Now deciding on the best area in the game is difficult. There are areas that I take my time with, and that I always like to journey through. Some examples being Dranglake Castle, Undead Crypt, and Shulva, Sanctum City. But the crown ultimately goes to Hades Tower of Flame. I love this area. This is Dark Souls 2 for me. Breathtaking views and the two roads you can take. Hidden levers to make the boss fight easier or harder if you're a pro. This is a place that I just stop and take it all in. And dare I say it's the most beautiful area in the entire game. It's a very niche pick, but it's my favorite. The only thing lacking is that the area is short, perhaps too short. And the old Dragon Slayer, while cool, certainly cheapens the experience from Dark Souls. In the end, it's still my personal favorite though. Dark Souls 3 seems to be the perfect ending to the mainline Souls games. With perhaps a bit too much fan service, but it ends on a good note and captures the spirit of all the games. The game itself has many highs and a few lows, but finding a bad area to complain about or just proclaim to be the worst wasn't particularly easy. Especially since I kind of like Irithel Dungeon, and finding the best one was no different. The game pretty much has no bad areas. But it does have some that stand out, and not in a good way. At first I was going to pick Profane Capital, mainly due to the unachieved potential it has. But the uncontested loser is in this case Pharaon Keep. This area is the one I actually want to skip on every playthrough. It's a slog through a mostly flat poison swamp that hosts some really dangerous foes, which in contrast to you doesn't get hindered by the swamp, meaning they're faster than you and will catch up and probably kill you. Add on the slow poison draining your health and we have an absolute chore. The only saving grace is the upper sections with the stray demon and other things you can find, but overall a weak showing. The best one was harder to nail down. There are so many good areas in the game, including some from the DLC. Painted World of Ariandel is a marvel to behold, and so is the Ringed City with its many intricacies. And despite many other opinions, Cathedral of the Deep is fantastic, and almost got the title actually. But ultimately, Irithel of the Boreal Valley clutches the fight and comes out as the winner so very easily. The area has the best introduction in the game, and this even happens twice. Snowy streets filled with knights, slaves and witches.
Witches! You see that right there?
And hosting multiple important questlines. The area also has a few secrets to be discovered, and if we include Anno Londo section, and we do, it's hard to argue against all the positive aspects of the area. Add two great bosses to the mix and we are so close to perfection. Irithel is the best area in Dark Souls 3. Bloodborne remains to this day the favorite Souls game. For many reasons I cannot get enough, and my return to Yharnam is always just a matter of time. It's, how do you say it? It's more a when, not an if. Although shorter than some in the series, it does feature very interesting and varied locations that's a joy to explore, featuring unmatched atmosphere in most cases. It's honestly hard to even find a bad area, once again. But there are areas that's lacking something, or some that feel sluggish, and there's actually one area I always dread. Nightmare Frontier is a huge area with multiple looping paths, and if you go in blind, chances are high you'll get lost. Throw in poisonous swamp areas, rock-throwing yetis, and even winter lanterns that causes frenzied build-up, and this is an area that I'd rather just skip again. The only saving graces are the appearance of a particular kind of NPC and the boss, and that's it. Bad area. But the best area, however, is very easy to choose. Although I love the atmosphere and architectural design of the research hall and lecture building, the winner is so clearly the first major area in the game, Central Yharnam. This place, man, it's always just a joy to explore, no matter how many times you've done so before. Rap God. Many possible paths to take, interesting NPCs and other figures that can be found here, so much lore, the absolutely heartbreaking questline of Gascoigne's daughter, the lore implication of Iosefka's clinic, the connection to Forbidden Woods, the breathtaking views that can be admired, and oh my god, I can sit here forever. If I'm being honest, Yharnam probably has the best level design out of all the Souls games. And while I have rose-tinted glasses to the place, you know, booting up the PS4 and playing it for the first time, it's still the number one area in a game that I'd like to forget just to experience it again. A masterpiece in short. Sekiro is a really underrated game in From Software's repertoire, as it took an entirely different direction from their traditional entries, but it paid off in full. More geared toward Asian culture and folklore, it features incredible locations and beautiful vistas, and it's not uncommon to stop in your tracks just to admire the view. It's one of From's best creations, without a doubt. The worst area in the game comes from the ever-traditional From Software specialty, poison, in this case the Ashina Depths. I like the heavy atmosphere and lore to the abandoned dungeon, otherwise that would have been a perfect fit. And to be clear, Ashina Depths does feature some thick atmosphere and lore, with many mini-bosses to be found. The first section has poisonous pools and snake eyes, and later on it features a fog-filled village. It's a bit tricky to navigate this place, and with the addition of fog later on in the area, it doesn't really become any easier either. The number one reason is that it always feels annoying to go through this location, and I hold a special place with hate in my heart for the duo ape fight. No thank you. The best place is an entirely different matter. The game has a lot of places that's a joy to behold or find every nook and cranny when exploring or jumping across rooftops. The final feud is between Ashina Castle and the Senpo Temple, both very substantial areas with a lot of lore implications and important events during the game. But as to what area I always enjoy, it's gotta be Senpo Temple, standing at the top of Mount Kongo. In contrast to the rest of the game, Senpo Temple is colorful and serene, home to many monks, and it creates a lot of questions surrounding the lore and story of the game. It's also vital to the progression of the game's story, and many of its most important characters, such as the Divine Child. I'm also probably among the few that enjoy the folding screen monkey section. In summary, Senpo Temple is always a joy to come back to, no matter what. Last in line is Elden Ring, a fantastic game that's massive in scale, but with only a handful of areas that's truly memorable and well designed. Huge, beautiful areas are interwoven with forgettable slogs or unforgettable areas in the wrong way. Elden Ring also has the displeasure of probably having the most amount of disliked areas in a Souls game, in my opinion. There are many places I'd like to largely avoid when journeying through the lands between. The dreadness and muck of the subterranean shunning grounds, the horror upon my vitality of the Lake of Rhode, or whoever the didn't play and learn from Dark Souls 2's mistakes with the frigid outskirts and made the abomination that is consecrated snowfield and called it a day. Good job, my dude. Smart. The second worst area easily. Halig Tree, though, is a plague in terms of unbalanced tomfuckery. Not only is this area a chore to play through, it starts off with a platform section where these fucking douchebags blows bubbles at you continuously, and later on multiple enemy clusters that'll trim off half your health bar with an attack. It all ends with a fight against the most annoying, unbalanced boss in the game, perhaps even serious, Melania. The only thing I enjoyed was fighting against Loretta, but even that experience was tainted by having sort of fought her image before. Try going through this area without a ranged attack of some sort, I fucking dare you. If you do, hit me up because damn, you're good at this game. On the other hand, the good areas in the game can be considered almost masterclasses of the classic FromSoft game design that we've all come to love. Intricate detailed environments, smart enemy placements, hidden areas and a nice level layout helps a long way. Volcano Manor, Royal Lucaria Academy, Caria Manor and especially Lanedale is some of the most impressive locations, period, in any game. But for me, the most fun area is the first official Mayor one, Stormvale Castle, and in my book fun always comes first. Going through this place blind was nothing short of a wonder, and it also sparked that cinder of appreciation and adventure that I found so many years ago. The starting fight against Margit is a test of ability that deems you worthy, or not, of entering the fortress, and from there on it keeps on chugging, ending with a fight against Godric. A fight that, while not necessarily hard, it's a well-designed showdown with axes, shouts and smoldering fire. The perfect end to the Stormvale Castle exploration, and the perfect beginning to Leon of the Lakes and the rest of the game, showing you that this is just the beginning. And those were all my personal opinions about some of the best places the Souls games has to offer, but also the worst, you know. Of course, you might have a differing one, so let me know down in the comments and be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. Until next time, believe in yourself and have a good one. See ya!